Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Clare Haynes is the founder of Wildfire at Work, and she helps people to master difficult conversations. Her tip for networking is to find something that you enjoy going to, because you may as well enjoy it while you're at it. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today, Clare.
Good morning.
Now, you're known as the Conversation Queen, which we'll come back to in a bit. I know your background's in psychology, but what did you do after your degree? What was your first job?
I worked in a lot of bars and waitressing, and then my first proper job was working when Carlton Television started in London. So I worked on the team that sold advertising to advertising agencies.
So, and what did you do after that? What took you away from that kind of field of work?
I was really lucky. I landed a job at Comic Relief, a charity, on Red Nose Day, which is really unusual, and it's a real blessing. And so you learn a lot of different things about how the charity sector works on a shoestring. And so I ended up in a fundraising career for a few years, and I worked for lots of household names such as the Children's Society, the Prince's Trust, NSPCC. It was really amazing. You meet a lot of people, and you really just know why you're getting up to go to work every morning. It's a privilege.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I bet working with the Comic Relief team was really fantastic.
Yeah, it's hilarious. There are things that you see in life that you didn't think you would see, put it that way.
And so eventually you set up your own business. What led you to set up Wildfire?
I was working in the charity sector in a really driven team, and it was quite political, and it was difficult. And when I couldn't protect my team anymore, who were really working so hard, I kind of, to be honest, Liz, I threw my toys out of my pram and I quit, and I went to Australia, which was a lifelong dream. And I was travelling there, and that's where I got the idea for the business.
And how long did you spend out in Australia?
I was there for a year. I couldn't stay. I couldn't engineer a visa unless I married my Turkish flatmate, and that wasn't the way to go.
So you came back to the UK, and how did you go about setting up on your own?
Well, when I was in Australia, I'd been serving a guy steak in a jazz club, and he was a bit of an ogre. And so, like a lot of waitresses or serving staff, I kind of made the mental note, Liz, to charm the guy and get an amazing tip. And think, right, okay, I'm just going to win you over. We're going to turn this around. And I did, and he offered me a job and all sorts. And I went home that night thinking, this is like the workplace. It's all about the environment that you give someone to turn into their best version of themselves. So I came back to the UK, and I was talking to a friend saying, I want to do something. My background was psychology originally. I was like, I really want to do something to help people in the workplace, regardless of the training that their manager had or the environment, the culture. And my friend said, well, you should train in coaching, this was 2002. So it just come to the UK as something you could train in as a skill. And I said, well, why? And she said, my friend said, well, you've been coaching me for years. And so I was like, oh, okay. So all kind of, it added up. And then I got jobs working with people in managing change, speaking at conferences, coaching one-to-one, career coaching, workplace coaching, and it just grew from there.
Yeah. So what was the training like? What was available back then?
There are a couple of coaching schools. I mean, now I think they're churning out. Someone told me they're churning out thousands a week. But there are a couple of coaching schools, and it was very much about partly how to run a business and partly how to, I guess all psychology, a lot of psychology theory, behavioural science, neuroscience, the things about listening, the tendencies of the brain, a bit of NLP, rapport building. And it's very much about how you can help someone to have an impact and on their motivation, but without you actually instructing them how to do it. That's the core concept, obviously, behind coaching.
Yeah. So when you started, as you said, coaching was new to the UK. how did people take to it? Did they understand what it was about?
It was very much labelled life coaching at the time, so people saw it as the sports analogy, which is where coaching originally came from as a concept. And people did accept it, but I think, like anything, people wanted to know what you were an expert in. So there's always going to be that blend of, yes, you have a skill, a bit like you're a public speaker, but you're a public speaker on what?
Yeah.
So you still need to, I guess, back it up with some experience. I think that's what people want to know. They want to know your credibility.
Yeah. So tell me about the services that you offer.
I help people one-to-one and in groups, and I facilitate group workshops, and I speak at conferences. So I specialise in difficult conversations to make people more confident in their conversations. So some people would call that soft skills. It can be negotiating, it can be presentations delivered in a certain way, it can be assertiveness, people that aren't getting on with certain members of staff or staff that aren't getting on. I work with a lot of customer service teams who end up on the end of quite a bit of abuse. So it's really wide ranging.
Yeah. So who are your clients, and how many would you typically be working with at any one time?
I work a lot in the public sector, such as the NHS, and I work a lot with different corporates, and that can be an organisation. Normally, the smallest size is probably 100 people, but it can be up to, people can have thousands of employees, all sorts. I've worked with Coca-Cola, large banks. It just depends. Sometimes they're programs. It can be, say, a long-term program. I'd like to say that people come to me for aspirational reasons, but normally it's because they've got a problem, and then we might later on work on something more aspirational.
And where are your clients? Does it matter to you whereabouts that they are?
They can be anywhere. They have mostly been in the UK, occasionally abroad. They can be anywhere.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about the internet, isn't it? It makes the world a smaller place.
Absolutely, yeah. You can impact a lot more people faster now.
Yeah. So tell me about how you help in a bit more detail.
So, for example, I run a thing called hot seats for customer service teams, or for teams that have issues with people being abusive, or people that can be slightly difficult, where the staff are on recorded calls. They have to be impeccable at all times with customer service, but they also have to handle some people that are sometimes just being downright difficult. and so a hot seat, for example, is we have calls every few weeks where they literally put me on the spot. So I'll have the whole team online and they'll put me on the spot. We can also do that face to face. We don't need to, because getting a whole, say, customer service team off lines or off calls is quite restricted.
Yeah.
So we tend to do it in half an hour blocks for that. It can be one-to-one. So if I can be coaching a leader or a board member one-to-one about some dynamics that they're dealing with, whether it's they want to have an impact or they want to unpick why people aren't, technically everyone should be following in the same direction. They're all motivated the same way, but there still seem to be clashes. And when we unpick the conversations, I have a strange knack of character profiling. So if you were to tell me 2 or 3 sentences of a conversation with someone, I can normally tell you how to deal with that person. I can figure out the traits of that person or their tendencies. So I can tell you how you can get more from that conversation to suit both of you.
Yeah. And is that due to your background in psychology, do you think?
I think I naturally was really nosy beforehand. It was my brother told me to go and study psychology, and I said, why? He said, because you just know about people. I just think I had I was always really, really nosy. I always wanted to work in business. I always wanted to work with people. And I've been doing this for 23 years, so I think I've just experienced so many different people, as well as I'm a learning junkie. So I tend to pass it on.
So how did you get the nickname Conversation Queen, and who gave that to you?
It came out of, I had been doing soft skills. It's kind of only a couple of years ago. I'd been doing soft skills for, all of this time, saying, I'm a soft skills specialist. It's workplace psychology. And then I happened to be on a business training course, upping my skills. And it came out of that, kind of like, oh, you're the conversation queen. I told someone I was doing it, oh, you're the conversation queen. And I was like, oh, that actually makes far more sense than in a simple couple of words than I've actually made sense, which is ironic given the fact that half the time I'm telling people to use less words.
Yeah. And as you already mentioned, you specialise in difficult conversations. Why difficult conversations? And is there anyone else that's doing that, or is that just you?
There are a few people. If you go onto LinkedIn, you can look it up. Yeah, there are a few people. People package things in different ways. The reason for difficult conversations is because most people that are having major confident conversations don't necessarily think about it. I think people think they would like more confidence, but at the time, it's almost like their pain point is, at this moment, I've got to go into a conversation which I would rather avoid. So that's where it comes from.
Yeah. And do you find that sometimes people are avoiding having those conversations?
Absolutely, it's the biggest issue. So people procrastinate because they're like any fear, they're predicting the outcome, and it isn't necessarily what's going to happen. But because they're predicting it, their brain partly shuts down when their cortisol rises, when their stress rises. So it's about being able to plan, but without blocking your brain with complications.
Yeah. And what would you say that you do differently from other coaches? What makes you unique?
I have a thing called the mischief method. So my favourite word is mischief. I think it adds a bit of fairy dust into life for fun, a bit of kind but naughtiness, if you like. And what we do with mischief is it's lightening the conversation. So, for example, if someone has a difficult customer they have to deal with, they can't infer anything unpleasant or rude or whatever, but we can be playful. So it's making the conversation a little bit more lighthearted and more playful in a way that it brings the lighter side and you don't feel so under threat. So the mischief method is all about looking at the ridiculous side of it. And so I might say to someone, well, you can keep them talking and talk until they just become exhausted. And they're like, oh, well, that's cheeky. And it's like, well, it's going to work because they're going to get everything off their chest. But if you can see it that way and they don't detect any ill harm from it, it lightens the conversation for everybody.
Yeah. So what kind of results do you find people are getting having worked with you?
Oh, they vary, Liz. So we've got we have two customer service teams at the moment who I've been working with for over a year, and they have completely changed their MO. They have completely changed the routines they use. They're all speaking similar language techniques. They are getting off the phones so much faster. They're feeling empowered. I have someone who lost their temper, who does quality assessment. They lost their temper and they came to me saying, I need to do something because I can't lose it in a meeting like I did, and I feel bad about it. I've not done it before. It's out of character. They've learned how to completely change when they're in that environment so that they feel more empowered and they're also not coming across as threatening to anybody. So I have a client who, when they became chairman, just recently they wrote me a testimonial actually. They went from managing partner to chairman, and I had completely forgotten that we did this. They said, I don't know what to do in this role now. And so their PA called me, and I happened to be in London that day, and I went to see them. And apparently I just had a brief conversation with him, and he was able to sit down and write his whole annual plan because I could see straight through this complicated conversation that he was having with himself and other people. So it just varies.
Yeah, that's interesting. A difficult conversation with himself. Is that something you can help people with, the conversations that they're having within their own head?
I think the main conversation is the conversation that you're having in your own head. Because it's your internal dialogue that's restricting you. So you imagine, performance. You know what it's like if you get in your own way. So you imagine if we were all just really bold and just didn't care what anybody thought, we would be so much freer with our speech. Now, I'm not saying it would always have fantastic results if we didn't consider other people, but it's the overthinking, and it all comes back to shame. It's because the one emotion we're never taught how to handle when we're small is shame, and it's the most painful emotion that we have memories about.
Yeah.
And so that's almost getting us into a cycle of predicting what's going to happen. And we predict what other people will do as well, Liz.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we get that wrong.
Yeah.
I would say potentially 50% of the time, even if you know someone well, we are free thinking, free moving, free speaking things. You can't predict what someone else is going to do because it could be to do with the day they've had, or what happened 5 minutes ago, or that they got a parking ticket the moment before they saw you. And it has nothing to do with you, but we just worry about ourselves probably that little bit too much.
Yeah.
So the conversation with yourself is really important, and the fact that I always say to people, you only need to take 51% responsibility for the conversation. So yes, take your fair share or just slightly over it if you're going to be conscientious, but you can't be in control of that 49%. It's ebb and flow. You have to go with it, and that's where, like most things, staying present is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, really interesting. So let's have a little chat about networking now. How do you like to network and grow your network?
Well, I used to get paid to do networking as my role in the charity sector. We literally grew fundraising campaigns based on networking. So I learnt it really early on about the power of it and leveraging things. I'll give you some examples of the last year. I've been in a couple of awards events. I've won a couple of awards, which is lovely.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. And I was at an awards, and I asked to sit next to somebody that I knew was going to be there, who has their own network, as it happened. And they were so flattered that I asked to sit next to them. I said, well, we haven't met before, but I knew you were here, you were going to be here, and I knew who you are, and I was really intrigued to meet you. And as a result, I can now go to this person. I'm part of their network. I met other people that do similar things that I do because we were at awards for similar things, and we've shared advice, we've got work from each other, we've recommended each other to clients. I met someone at an event for suppliers to the NHS. We work for similar parts of the NHS, and yet we were still able to give each other our favourite contacts, even though on paper you might think we do something incredibly alike. So another example is last year I was on a business course where I met 7 other women who are in completely different businesses to me and at different stages of their businesses. And we set up a WhatsApp, which I fondly called the Cash Coven, which is on WhatsApp. And we will just message each other any point, any time. How are you getting on? Does anybody know an access to this platform or to this person? Just things like that. Just ways to make it easier. And it just kind of breeds.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. And I love a WhatsApp group, actually. I'm in a couple of those. And, sometimes you just need help with something. You can just drop it in there and somebody always knows the answer.
Absolutely. I'm on so many WhatsApp groups, and I think it's growing as well. I think people have realised that it's a quick way to network. It's a quick way for people to help each other because it's just in your phone, as opposed to, yes, you can use LinkedIn, and I use LinkedIn a lot. But yeah, the WhatsApp thing's just fast. When someone asks a question, it's so quick, and I think people like to help. It's a key thing in resilience as well, in terms of when people say, networking's a lot of effort. You say, well, actually, the giving thing is really key for our own resilience when we're not feeling in control. And so by giving to someone else, we can just feel, well, I may not feel fantastic about what I'm doing today, but I can help somebody else.
Yeah.
And it's that whole giver's gain. I've always networked one way or another, but the giver's gain thing, I definitely works.
Yeah.
In terms of, people remember you, and you don't have to do an awful lot, I don't think, to impress someone if you can just give a little bit of generosity.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have any other sort of tips or advice for people who are maybe new to networking?
I would definitely use LinkedIn as a tool because you get 100, in the UK, you get 100 free invitations a week. So I think that's a really clever way of growing your network and your exposure. And I was in the first million LinkedIn members just by chance because it was when I was going to Australia.
Yeah.
And I had some really impactful people that I wanted to stay in touch with, but without being intrusive. And LinkedIn had just started. So that's why I got onto LinkedIn, so I could stay in contact with people. It's a really nice way of having almost like your little black book, but you don't need to keep a record of everyone yourself.
Yeah.
And I would say find people that you like hanging out with. So you can be told you should go to this networking group at 6 a.m. or you should do this different type of networking. Don't listen to other people. Find out, where do you want to hang out? You might network through your Pilates class. You might network through golf. You may as well double it up and enjoy it, because if you enjoy it, then you're infectious and you'll meet your kind of people. I think sometimes we can think, oh, let's say business networking. You need to hang out with people that are in your kind of work, in your kind of business. You don't. People are everywhere, but you do have to watch your time. So you may as well enjoy it while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So finally, Claire, if people would like to connect with you and be part of your network, what's the best place for them to find you?
On most social media, my handle is Wildfire Spark. And if you search Clare Haynes Wildfire, I will come up in a search on most places.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest today, Claire.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.